make a decision to make peace with every single thing that bothers you. Because pushing away the things that bother you, like scrolling on your phone when you're bothered or going on a walk when you're bothered, means you're pushing it away, right? Make peace with those things because those things that bother you are the gateways to all those suppressed emotions.
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Helping People Perform, where I'm chatting once again to an amazing guest. Being joined all the way from Kalamazoo in Michigan in the States, we have 3 times US memory champion. See, I couldn't remember that. Maybe you can teach me a thing or two. And turned high performance coach, focusing on a particular area that we're going to look at later on. Welcome to the show today, John Graham.
Hey, thanks, Paul. And I'll take the world champion too. That's a goal of mine eventually. But yeah, three-time US. Thank you.
Brilliant. So, there's so much to talk about, and we've got a particular topic that you're helping people with now that we'll come on to later on in the show, I'm sure. But I just wanted to get your backstory in terms of particularly that element of the sort of US memory champion element. How did you get into that, and what's your backstory before that?
Yeah, this actually started 10 years ago. I was 27. I was
Wow.
not born with a particularly good memory. I'm not a savant, not a photographic memory. That's all myth, really. I read a book called Moonwalking with Einstein. And this
Okay.
book, the subtitle was The Art and Science of Remembering Everything. And that subtitle just like grabbed my soul. I had to read that book. And I found out, yeah, these ordinary people like myself just learn memory techniques using visualization, imagination, connection, places, and just turning information into like imagery and stories and
Right.
anchoring it in places that we know well,
Mm.
right? So it's just all technique. And I just started learning, memorize a deck of cards within a week, like a full 52 order within like
Wow.
6 minutes. And I was like, this is insane. So I just kept going. I kept going. I kept training for about 4 to 6 months. And I actually signed up and competed at the World Memory Championships in China that year because my wife and I were in Southeast Asia. I was like, I'm just gonna go compete, see if this stuff actually works, see if I do well. And that was 2014, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And you didn't quite win that 2014 World World Champs, if I'm
I
right.
completely bombed. I completely bombed. I didn't know what I was doing. The pressure, like, can you imagine sitting there for 3 days, stressed out of your mind? 10 events over 3 days. It was so high pressure, high stress that I had to learn from some of the people there. And that's the genuine part of the sport is that people will share how they do it, other
Right.
people from all the world. And so that kept me going.
Amazing. And so I mean, just I can't picture it actually. What does a World Memory Championship look like? You talk about 10 events. Can you give us some examples there?
Yeah, with your eyes, it looks pretty boring because it looks like hundreds of people in a room taking a test, right?
Right.
But it's 3 days of different disciplines. So we memorize like names and faces, decks of cards, numbers, lists of numbers, binary numbers, words, and there's 10 disciplines over 3 days.
Mm.
So it's like a marathon event, and we're just
Wow.
scored on different things. But we're all using when you're sitting there looking at these people, it looks boring, but inside they're highly creative. I mean, explosive visually nostalgic imagery going on to create these stories that link together to remember massive amounts of information.
So, I mean, you talk about people sharing the techniques then. Is there anything you can share with the audience then that some simple tips and tricks that could help them with their own memory?
Yeah, you really just want to turn the information into something memorable, into a story, make a connection, right? So
Okay.
the very simple, if you're memorizing like a foreign language,
Mm.
right? You got your word, your native word, and then you have the foreign word, right? So for example, um, Spanish. I learned Spanish in high school, right?
Right.
Just crammed it forever. I wish I knew this technique. Let's say the word pool. Pool in Spanish is piscina,
Right.
piscina, right? So if I'm trying to use a technique to remember that, instead of reading it over and over, I create an image. So Pool, you know what that looks like already, a swimming pool.
Right.
Piscina, now you want to link piscina. What does that sound like? What does that make me think of?
Mm.
Right? So piscina, right, could sound like piss in a
Yeah.
pool. So you
Yeah.
imagine you're pissing in a pool, and that imagery, that connection just is so magnetic and so strong that it helps you retain that for longer.
Right. Brilliant. And have you seen then the uses of this? You talk about being a high performance coach, for instance. You've taught people some of these techniques and helped them with their own performance through it. What are some of the people that you've helped with? What type of people have you helped? What have you helped them with by teaching them some of these techniques and
I've
methodologies?
helped so many different people. Actresses memorize lines. I've helped engineers memorize terms and Cisco systems and students all over the world, college students.
Right.
With memory, it's really about turning on the imagination, right? Because over the years, we kind of lose that ability. We just like, as adults, we're taught that's not important anymore, right? We're so left brain. This whole world is like left brain logic, structure. Um, and it completely shuts off the right side of the brain, which is the intuitive, the creative, the juice, right?
Right.
So we want to, when I train people, it's taking them out of the structure and the left brain and more into the intuitive, creative side, where instead of like, if I were to give you that example of piscina, a left-brained way of searching for that would be like Google searching your brain and like, what's the perfect image, right?
Mm.
And the critical mind gets in the way. Oh, no, piscina is too vulgar. I can't use that. Oh, wait, should I use piece, like a piece of pie? Should I? And it's just so clunky and it takes forever, so analytical.
Yeah.
But if you use your right brain, you allow something to come in. Like
Mm.
I teach people basically to trust the first thing that comes in. Like
Right.
no judgment, no criticizing it, just trust that and use that as your anchor, as your story. And
Right.
that helps people with speed, it helps people with intuition, helps people, flow better, and it works better because it's coming into you for a reason. Your brain, your mind chose it for a reason. So that's one of the aspects I help people with is more of a right brained or a heart centered or an intuitive process to do this.
Right. And I mean, I've learned a couple of techniques along the way. Back in my facilitation days, for instance, you've got a lot of things to do, and I learned a sort of how to memorize a list of 10 things with the one sun in the sky. So you sort of, and some physical movements with your hands as well helps to sort of go, right, what's that round thing that I'm thinking of here? So number one, how do I link it to the sun? Number two, I've got two hands. How do I link what I've got there to two hands? So that's a bit less of the direct creative, but more of a how do you link something to a known list of 10 things?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's like a peg system. That's a
right,
link. It's a great way. The intuitive part of that process would be trusting the first idea you have for the connection,
right.
right? So instead of analyzing, no, the thing with the hands isn't good enough. I don't have enough imagery or whatever. Again, trusting. Good to go. Next one, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, amazing. And so that culminated obviously over the years. You've got the three trophies behind you for anyone watching the video here. And interesting, we were talking about it. For people not looking at these and listening to this podcast, we've got three trophies here that are all in the shape of a seahorse, and there's a very good reason for that. And do you want to share that with us, John?
Yeah, the seahorse mimics the shape of the hippocampus in the brain, right?
There we go.
So good little brain tip there.
Good one to remember. There we go. And just out of interest, what years have you were you US champion on that?
Yeah, 2018 was my first. That was at MIT in Boston, and then I'm the last two times, so 2022, 2023. So I'm
Wow.
hoping to repeat for third in a row this year.
And you're going for it this year as well, yeah?
Oh yeah, I'll be
Fan-
there. Yeah.
Fantastic. And hopefully we'll see you at the Worlds as well, and seeing that amazing. I would I would say some people would say the skill and the sort of natural ability, but as you've said, this is a worked muscle. This is something that anybody can pick up, and if they want to and they're willing to work at it, can start to build up their own memory and have those techniques for themselves. And I think that's so many people who I've seen across the businesses that I've helped as well, who would benefit from this ability to recall more information, or be have a better memory for the things they're supposed to do. I mean, the great example you said there about the engineering team, and if you've got a new system in place, so many new bits of jargon to learn. How do I learn them all?
Mhm.
If I've got a big presentation to do, how do I remember how my presentation's going to flow, or the key points that I want to make? So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's just turning that information into something creative.
right.
You can use the memory palace, and some people have heard of this too. Like if you're memorizing a long list or a speech and you need to remember order, sequence of it,
Yeah,
right? You can turn parts of the speech, create an image or a story in your mind to represent that part and put them in order. So the first image can go at the first place in your house, the first location of your house. That's a
right.
memory palace, right? Place you know well. First image can go in the door, the first part of the story, and then mentally you walk in, and then the first, the nightstand, or not the nightstand, the closet. You can put the second part of the story of the speech, and then the third part's on the couch, and mentally walking through a place you know well, you see the images, which are kind of like bullet points on a flashcard,
Right.
right? Or a note card. So instead of note cards, and I use this technique, I was the best man at my brother's wedding and I memorized a 15-minute speech. Like the photographer who's has photographed weddings all over the world, and he's like, I've never seen someone memorize 15 minutes of a speech. He was like, how that did you do that?
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, well, I'm a memory champ, but I just used bullets into images and just put them around my house to remember, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about next. And it's
Yeah.
just ingenious, but anyone could do that.
And what a way to stand out amongst, if you're presenting and other people are presenting, just that ability to engage with the audience and not be looking at your notes and not be looking around. That's such added value to people in that situation as well, right?
So just have the trust and the confidence to know, like most people struggle with memory because they don't know where it is up here. They
Right.
don't know where to search, how to find it. But if you have it in your house on your nightstand, you know where to find that next bullet point, right? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
there. So it's reliable. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic, and I mean, so much to learn from that world in itself. But we talk about the topic of this podcast being helping people perform, and I know that you have and do help people perform with that memory side of it. But there is a specific area that you now focus on as well, and are putting a lot of energy into. Do you want to share with our audience what that is?
Yeah. I struggled with anxiety most of my life, chronic anxiety.
Mm,
Not just like worrying about things in advance, that's part of it, but the internal physiological heaviness, the dread, and it led to panic attacks. I
mm,
was at one point having multiple daily panic attacks, which is just it's so debilitating internally. And I tried all these conventional methods, which I'm sure most people try, and wasn't getting anywhere. It was still looming. It was still underneath the surface of me, just
mm.
like paralyzing me in moments. And here I am, a US memory champion, and I would like freeze up and I would like tense up and I wouldn't know what to say, or I'd just go in my head and I would feel overwhelmed and have to go escape. So it was just got to the point where it's so debilitating that I had to find answers, right? And I was trying, I tried hypnosis, I tried mantras, I tried supplements, meditations, guided meditations, therapy and all that stuff. And found out it's all limiting,
Right.
right? We're trying to solve a mental problem, and it's not even a mental problem. The root of anxiety and panic is emotional.
Okay.
Here we are treating it with mental aspects which sound good logically,
Mm,
but much like I talked about earlier, that left brain, right brain, right? If we're too left brain dominant,
mm.
we're too conditioned to control in the mind, that anxiety just festers and we never address the real issue. So that's what I help people with now because I found extreme relief and release from panic and anxiety. I don't have it anymore. And so that's
Well,
what I stepped into the world of like memory techniques are cool to teach people, but really saving people's lives and helping them from this internal struggle is more of my passion now because it's life altering.
yeah. Oh, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, it's not something that I personally struggle with. I've had moments of sort of overwhelm and things like that, but I have seen it happen in other people, and I fully empathize and sympathize with that. Um, but one point I wanted to pick up on, you talked about you feel as if, or you have moved on from, you've actually released yourself from this as opposed to are just treating that, which I know quite a lot of um, mental health issues and things like this, and particularly anxiety, is something that, yes, I've learned how to manage it, I've learned how to deal with it. But you're not talking about that, are you? You're talking about actually releasing yourself from it.
Yeah, I didn't want to manage it. I didn't want to take a pill. a Xanax.
Mm.
I didn't want to just repeat these mantras over and over and redirect my mind because it was just exhausting.
Right.
I wanted to get to the root and release it for good, like forever. I didn't want to feel it anymore.
Mm.
And because of that, I think that curiosity is what led me down the rabbit hole to like what's really going on. Because
Right.
like a lot of meditation, meditation, for example, right? Focusing on your breath, meditation is actually, if you have anxiety, it's very harmful because
Okay.
you're bypassing the actual root, right? So if I'm sitting there and I'm feeling really anxious and really tense and like heart palpitations and you know dread and all these sensations in my body, if I focus my thoughts on my breath, right? If I bring my attention to my breath, I'm completely bypassing the feeling, the suppressed emotion that wants to come out for good.
Right.
So I'm not dealing with the energy, right?
Mm.
So the solution in a nutshell is when these uncomfortable energies, because they're very uncomfortable, right? When any negative emotion, feeling, sensation comes up, we have to allow it to happen, like completely allow that feeling to happen without resistance.
Right.
Because the reason we have all this suppressed stuff inside of us is basically everything we have ever pushed away in our life, every experience that was uncomfortable in our lifetime
Mm.
that we didn't fully handle and process is still inside of us.
Mm.
So you can imagine all the junk we store inside and
Yeah.
block ourselves with, right? So when it comes up, if we keep trying to focus on our breath instead, or go for a walk, or blow off steam, which there's nothing wrong with those things,
Yeah.
it's bypassing. It won't ever allow that stuff to come up and out.
Mm.
So dealing with and allowing that uncomfortable feeling to fully process out is how you release that stuff for good. And over time, over days or weeks, a couple months, is how you can fully release these suppressed emotions and this conditioning that's holding you in this place.
Right. And so, out of interest, is this something that was a that came to you off the back of a personal journey that you've sort of self-reflected on this, or did you get any guidance or help from elsewhere? What's influenced you to realize and get to the stage where you've gone, here's a different way of doing things.
Yeah. I had a lot of coaches over the years. I think the one that stands out to me the most where pieces started to really click for me. Michael Singer, he wrote The Untethered Soul. His books are great. Um, but I went to see him in person in Florida. He gives free talks, and his talks go a little bit deeper, and you can find them online for free too.
Mm.
But he talks about these some scars, these blocked emotions, these trapped energies that block us, right?
Mm.
And we are conditioned to have our reality be the way we want it to be.
Right.
Everyone wants reality to be the way they want it to be or to avoid the things we don't want. And in that conditioning, we push away what we don't want and we try to force things to be the way we want. We try to control.
Right.
And that control, right, only allows us to be happy when everything matches up. We got ice cream today. It was sunny. The wife said, I love you. Like that's only when we're only happy when our mind gets what it wants. But when
Right.
we don't get what we want, we push it away. And over
Right.
time, that causes all these issues. And it just clicked for me. Um, I said, why don't I lean into everything that bothers me? I like literally wrote a list of all the people that bothered me,
Right.
of all the things that bothered me. And I started handling that feeling as far as like sitting with it, not like doing anything with it, right?
Mm.
Because there's no control. I'm not trying to push away my anger or fear or anxiety. I'm not trying to do something with it. I'm just like holding a space for it, much like you would for a kid. Like if a kid came screaming to you, crying, and they were upset, you would just hold them.
Mm.
You don't need to say anything. You don't need to lecture them. You just hold them until that feeling passes. So I did that with myself because we are the only ones who can do that for ourselves.
Right.
So I started to face all of the uncomfortable stuff that started coming up, which there was a lot there. And we all do this, by the way.
Mm. Oh, brilliant. And we talk about, the people that you help with this. What sort of, who is your client base, and the second question that goes along with that is, how do you help them? So what's an engagement with you look like, and how do people interact with you and your services?
This is good. I help high performers. you know, and that's a very general term, but people who are trying to strive and achieve in life to get to their next level, right? I realized my next level wasn't like mentally rehearsing beliefs and affirmations. That's good and all, but internally, if we release the stuff that's in our way, these are the actual blocks we have in our life. The blocks, the subconscious blocks, we won't solve those mentally. We solve them internally by feeling that intelligence and the feeling that wants to be released.
Mm.
So what I do is I have people in a container, right? So in a group, we meet once a week,
Right.
answer any questions from the modules. So I guide people through three processes in the modules.
Okay.
Number one, if you're having anxiety, if you're having panic attacks, if you're completely overwhelmed internally, shutting down, paralyzed, number one, you have to be fully regulated, your nervous system.
Mm.
And if you have anxiety, your nervous system is not regulated. It means it's always on. Your mind
Okay.
is
Right.
always on, always thinking, always like you can't even sit still. Even when you're sitting still, your mind's still going, right?
Right.
That means your nervous system's switched on. We have to turn it off in a way, regulate it so that we can process and handle the voltage of life,
Right.
right? Because right now you're like short circuited and tense. I'm
Right.
sure all the people listening are tense, right? It means you're holding in this stuff. We have to relax, release all these deep, deep, deep inner tensions we've held for years. And I teach people how to do that. Okay.
Right.
The second thing is I teach people how to unhook from negative emotions. This is the unhooking method. So really relaxing our bodies, allowing that sensation to go. A lot of people have questions about this process because if you have anxiety, you're up in your head. You're always thinking, what do I do? Is this right? Am I doing it the right way? And we want to bring it down to the heart. We want to bring it down into our bodies and feel that instead of just like trying to wish it away or figure out what to do. So that's a little process I have to walk people through, but they pick it up pretty quickly. And then the third part is what I call catalyst integration. And there was an experience I had. My grandfather committed suicide
Wow.
a little while back, and I share that because everyone has different experiences with life, right?
Mm.
I had extreme rage come out at him when he did that,
Right.
right? It wasn't just sadness, there was sadness, but this intense amount of stuff came up for me
Mm.
because I judged him. I judged people who were suicidal. I didn't understand them at the time. And it was all of that came out in rage. How could you do this to our family? How could you not leave a note? How could you abandon us? How like it was eating me alive. It was so
Mm.
much poison. And one day, after like a month of this suffering for me, because I was
Mm.
holding poison, I realized I was holding on to all this poison. He was gone. He made his choice.
Mm.
And I'm holding on to so much stuff. And I learned, I went to bed that night. My head hit the pillow and I said, Grandpa, I don't agree with what you did, but I love you. And I swear to you, an elephant of rage lifted off my shoulders and
Right.
it was gone. I couldn't get mad anymore. Like I tried to go back to the memories that ticked me off. It was gone. It
Wow.
was all gone. The sizzle was completely gone. I said, what the heck just happened? And from that moment, I figured out why we hold on to stuff from the
Mm.
past, why we hold attachments, and how to release that stuff. Because we have massive boulders inside of us
Mm.
from the past, from people, from resentments, from disagreements, from breakups, from whatever. No judgment. But the catalyst integration is a process anyone could do in the comfort of their home, 5 to 15, 20 minutes, sometimes to release these things.
Right.
And once you do that, you're fully regulated. You learn how to unhook. You release the stuff with catalyst integration. That's how anxiety is released for good. That's how panic attacks are released for good, and you don't suffer from those dense energies anymore.
Wow. And I mean, such powerful stuff as you say, and it's I think it's amazing having seen some of your stuff and seen your things online as well around how you've got those three things. Any two out of those three would help you along the way, I'm sure, and make an impact. But actually having all three of them together is probably the magic source of being able to get to the other side. And really applaud you for the work that you're doing on that, and for the help that you're giving people. And I love the fact that you've taken something that's personal, you've gone through a journey, and you've gone, right, here's a way that I can help people and help others perform at their best. And I think it says in your some of your materials as well. I was chatting to you before recording. This isn't for everyone. You know, it could maybe expand on that a little bit. Who's it for, and who's it not for?
Yeah. Well, I was sharing earlier that some people are okay managing and coping with their anxiety and panic, and that's okay. Like no judgment. If you
Yep.
want to keep taking meds, supplements, grounding, therapy, and keep talking to someone, that's fine. But if what I do, as you can tell, is an uncomfortable process, but
Mm.
it's the only way through it. The only way to release all of the stuff we have inside of us is to feel that emotional pain as it releases. Because
Right.
we've stored it as pain, it will release as pain, as emotional pain, right? As sadness, as anger, whatever. And we will feel that. Okay. But you're already suffering with it every day. Why don't we just deal with it? Right. So when I say it's not for everyone, you have to be committed to following this process through, knowing that it works,
Yeah.
knowing that it will be uncomfortable, but it will be to your greatest, highest benefit over time.
Mm.
Right. So if people are willing to go there and are coachable, that's who this is for. But if people are want to stay put and they don't want to deal with anything from their past or people or things, that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
No judgment. So if
Yeah.
you're willing to face these things, release them for good forever, then that's who this is for.
Brilliant. And I think, like any high performance journey, you know, this sounds as if this isn't a sort of silver bullet quick fix piece. It's not a life hack that you can just go off and do. This is something, if you're willing to work through it, there is a return on investment really off the back of it. It's like, do I want to pay out $1 of pain a day for the rest of my life, or go through a process where I'm sort of spending so much in terms of the pain right now in order to get through it, so they don't have to have that payment anymore. Sort of rent
Yeah.
versus buy view in some ways.
Yeah, and I don't mean to scare anyone too with the emotional pain. I mean, people understand they'll feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
It's not as uncomfortable as people can imagine. Because, like I said, a, a life's worth of judgment and attachment and rage released in 10 seconds for me,
Right.
right? And so, if you know how to do it, and yes, you are willing to go there, not knowing, having a goal of like, I want to be panic attack free in 2 weeks, like, be realistic and allow this stuff to move through you the way it needs to, because we're all different, but it
Right.
will work for you.
Brilliant. Oh, superb! And I, do encourage people. Anybody who's struggling with this in any way, or indeed that you think this is just a technique that might help you achieve a new level of performance. I know we were talking before the recording about the fact that you're getting clients who don't even suffer panic attacks in some ways. They just want to go, to believe that they can reach that level of performance by, another mechanism in some ways. So I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, everyone has suppressed stuff in
Yeah.
conditioning, whether you suffer with panic or anxiety. So when people are like, hear about this suppressed emotion, like, yeah, I want that gone too. Because when you release and feel through the stuff, this is intelligence. This is
Right.
parts of ourselves that we denied. And in that energy, that emotion is intelligence. That is the block you need to overcome.
Mm.
It's not a mental exercise. It's an energetic emotional.
Mm.
And so, yes, it helps people perform naturally because they see their patterns clearly. They make better and higher choices quicker because they're moving through all the stuff that's holding them down.
Right. Oh, brilliant! And I mean, such good stuff. And I always like to ask my guests this next question, which is, how do you help yourself perform? I mean, it sounds as if you've gone through a big exercise yourself, but how do you continue that in terms of helping yourself get even better, either via the memory stuff or with the work that you're doing with the panic attack and
Yeah.
anxiety route?
The truth is, everything that I teach, I still practice.
Right.
And I think that's the best way is like, you're not going to listen to someone who doesn't do what they preach. Like, I simplified it enough to know exactly what will work. I still regulate my nervous system because that's a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
I have to every day commit to being relaxed and regulated, not on the go, not tense, not in fight, flight, freeze mode, right? And so yeah, I regulate. I constantly am relaxing, unhooking from any experience that's presented to me
Mm.
in the moment. So it doesn't keep suppressing and stacking in because
Yeah.
I've cleared so much. And yeah, I continue to notice anything that bothers me and practice the catalyst integration. So I've learned because look, I got so far with my mind, right? And peak performance.
Yeah.
I thought the answer was through the mind for everything. The
Yeah.
mind is great, but people overuse and over like they want to hack their mind so much, but they don't realize that the real issue is deeper than all of that. That the mind can correct itself when it can see itself clearly. So everything I preach is that next level for people that are sick of the affirmations and the therapies and the mental like gratitude practices. Like forcing gratitude is another way, bypassing all this
Right.
stuff. So if you want that next level, and this is what I do every day, is I practice that inner work
Yeah.
of expansion.
Brilliant stuff. And so let's move on to a couple of other questions then, in terms of if you could help any individual or team or organization with the skill set you've got, who would you want that to be?
Oh my gosh. There's just a lot of, I don't have a specific team. There's a lot of good people in this world who, like myself, felt trapped or feel trapped currently. Like it's hard to describe to people. There was a point in my life where, I had everyone who loved me. I had a house, I had the car, I had the business, I had the ability, but inside I felt trapped. I felt stuck,
Right.
right? And I was a good person. I wanted to help the world. So my answer to that is I know there are good people in this world who are not about just the money, who want to help the world.
Yeah.
There's the world is changing very rapidly.
Mm.
We're starting to be more of a we culture in a world than a me,
Mm.
right? Authenticity is there. So if you're a person who's authentic, wants to be and reach your highest potential to help more people because you have a gift inside, those are the people I want to help.
Right.
Not necessarily an entity or an organization, is the people, the good people of this world
Yeah.
who are stuck and trapped internally, not knowing what the answer is, even though they're really smart, like I was, right? And want to go deeper. So,
Yeah. Oh, lovely. And let's flip that question on its head a little bit then and say, if you could sit down and have a coffee, have a meal, have a drink with somebody who you think just a conversation with that person would really help me to up my game and get to a new level of performance myself, who would you want that to be?
yeah, I'm not first, the first person is Jesus. And I'm not a religious person. Um, I actually left Catholicism when I was young, but I say that because catalyst integration and some of the things I've learned, it's very helpful when you have a perspective, a divine perspective to people and others.
Mm.
Because if you can see other people in a different perspective, that's what catalyst integration is doing, by the way,
Right.
cracking people open, not just seeing through your lens, but sitting in other people's shoes and
Right.
slowly opening up, releasing judgment. Jesus is the embodiment of unconditional love, this divine view. So who better to like pick their brain or hear their wisdom of how to reach that level, not just through the mind, but through the heart and the
Right.
body. Because unconditional love is that's a guiding principle I have in my life is humans have this idea that love means flowers, kisses, hugs, intimacy. But I think actual love is more expansive than it. It's really unconditional acceptance.
Right.
It doesn't mean I have to hold you and hug you, Paul, and send you flowers because I love you. It means I have to fully accept who you are as a human being with all of your stuff and all of your brilliance, all of it as one instead of judging. And if I can do that with you,
Yeah.
I can do that with myself and I see the world in a different way.
Right.
So I know Jesus was the best at bringing that to the world, and he would probably help me understand that, feel that better.
Oh, amazing stuff. And so if let if our audience was to go and move away from listening to this amazing episode with one thing in their mind, one key lesson to take away from today, what would that one thing be for you?
Make a decision to make peace with every single thing that bothers you. Because pushing away the things that bother you, like scrolling on your phone when you're bothered or going on a walk when you're bothered, means you're pushing it away, right? Make peace with those things because those things that bother you are the gateways to all those suppressed emotions. And if you integrate those pieces of you, you'll be happier, more fulfilled because you're accepting and releasing these dark parts of you that want to be seen. That's the key to internal peace. It's not mentally, it's through emotions and energy.
Oh, amazing stuff. And if people want to find out more about this, or if people want to connect, where do people go from here?
Yeah, I've got a free guide for everyone, how to release your anxiety forever. And I mean that. Like,
Wow.
this goes more in depth and more direct of the message I gave today. And you can go to releasepanic.com/free to sign up and just get that free video from me. Um, my program is called Released. It's at
Yeah.
releasepanic.com. And then you can follow me on Instagram at MemoryJohnG for more content, more questions. But feel free to reach out, DM me, or find my email on the website. I'd be happy to help any of you guys. But um, I do want to give you guys the truth of what's going on internally to help more people. Whether you work with me or not, I really don't care. But I know that people are dying for this because I was at the time, and
Yeah.
yeah, happy to help anyone who's interested.
Oh, I mean, what an amazing conversation. And I mean, you going from, I thought when I first got in contact with you, I thought this is going to be an amazing thing, all about just memory and how to get you better memory. And we've had some great tips and tricks there. But I really applaud you for what you've done to not only face your own inner demons in some ways, but also to come out of that and go, this is how I can help others perform. And this is one of the sort of underlying principles as to why I wanted to put this show out in the world, is I want to connect as many people as possible with people who are helping you to perform from all sorts of different angles. And I think this is an amazing aspect, and something that if you're struggling in this in any aspect of this suppressed feelings world, then just having a look up at John's free work, and I've already had a look at some of it myself and already been blown away by it. So I do encourage you as the listeners here to go and check that out, contact John, and see where it goes from here. So amazing work, and thanks so much for being on the show today, John Graham.
Well, thanks for asking the questions, bringing me on, because it's very helpful to have people like yourself spread truth and messages and authenticity like this. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review, and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.